order. Thank you, David. If I can get a roll call real quick from the advisory board. Jonathan Hurwitz.
Here.
Kiara Moore.
Here.
Michael Huff.
Here.
David Lutz.
Here.
Brian Beachkowski is not available tonight. Shamil Siddiqui is not available tonight. Kristen Baelish.
Here.
Jackie Katz.
Here.
Okay, and I'm Susan Klein, and I would like to let everybody know that we are holding this meeting in accordance with the Massachusetts bylaw that says we can have Zoom meetings due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And tonight we will be primarily discussing Articles 19 and 20 as printed in the town warrant that everybody has been supplied a copy with. And it is also, a preliminary copy is available on the MyTownGov page under the advisory board, under our details and agenda, should anyone watching like access to this before it's been officially printed. Okay. Before I get started with Andy, I would like to speak to the advisory board on whether or not you would like to vote on any articles tonight. Again, I would like to hold off on voting on any zoning articles, as well as the citizens petition that deals with zoning, just because those are going to still be discussed next week, as well as the planning board still has to meet to make any final changes. Blythe, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that we can vote on the budget and the general town articles, as well as if we conclude the discussion tonight on both the energy and the animal regulations, we could vote on them during the meeting. Do you guys want to do that, or would you rather just vote on everything next week when everyone is here?
Just one point about the budget. The select board saw the balanced budget last night for the first time. They didn't have a chance to vote on it. It was just for discussion, and they're going to vote on the 20th. So I can't sit here and tell you that they've, approved that amount. I think the conversation went well, but I just would point out that the timing wise, it's going to be another 2 weeks before that happens. What I sent you today by email is what they saw last night. So happy to discuss it further, tell everybody where we're at. I mean, you certainly can take a position on that version. And I'll let Kevin speak if he wants his input on what he thinks the board might want to do, but that's just where we stand. Okay.
So we have various other town articles that don't relate to the budget as well that we can go ahead and discuss this evening, as well as the non-zoning ones. And it's really about whatever the board wants to do. If they want to wait until everyone's here next week and just knock out all of the articles at once, or if you'd like to get some of them done, it's really, we're here, it's a majority, we can make a decision or we can wait. It's totally up to you. Does anybody have an opinion one way or the other?
I have an opinion, which is to wait because I don't know, it feels like every time we do this, there's always I know that you're saying that's all closed off, but there are dependencies that always come up that I feel like might as well wait until we're all here.
Okay, not a problem. Anybody else? No? Okay, so it looks like nobody else has an opinion, so we'll just go with Michael's since he's the one that raised it. And we'll just—
David's on mute, but David's talking.
Oh, sorry, David, I can't hear you.
I apologize, I muted myself again. I would, if we end up talking about the warrant, why don't we buzz through it and see if there's nothing that's just totally non-controversial? The boilerplate stuff. Michael, my only point is if it's not going to engender discussion next week or the week after, why not just do it tonight? But I'm happy to.
Does anybody else
defer.
All right, so let's see where we're at when we finish with Articles 19 and 20. We, can go through some of the standard ones if we'd like, or we can end the meeting early and do it all next week. We'll revisit when we're done and see what time it is.
That also sounds appealing.
Okay, So next week's is probably going to be long because between the zoning that we have to discuss as well as voting on everything and assigning articles, it's probably going to be a long one next week. So let's get started and let's go to Andy or to Blythe to give us a brief overview of Article 19, and then we can open it up for discussion.
Well, I thought I'll let you take the lead on this one simply because you and David had kind of worked on this to start with.
Sure.
So give a little bit of background and then I can take it from there.
Happy to. So this idea came out of a resident request, Mr. Rosenberg, wanting to know if the town would consider municipal electricity aggregation. It's a topic that staff is familiar with. I set it up in another community prior to being here. And so we thought it was a good idea. We did some staff research about it with what some other communities have done recently. We engaged, by engaged, I mean, we contacted a consulting firm that does this work for Plainville. They had a good experience and sat down with them to ask them about it with no strings attached. We did that, and based on that, took it to the Energy Committee and said, hey, this seems like a good idea for Norfolk to consider. It has to go before town meeting. We had this similar presentation to them that you got from Susan, and so it's on the warrant. Select board I think is generally favorable about it because we think it's a way that can help residents save a small amount of money on something they pay for anyway, electricity, with very minimal work on the staff's part and no out-of-pocket costs for the town. So that tee up, hopefully Andy's a good lead in for you.
That's good enough. Do you want me to share that presentation or is someone else want to take control of that? It's up to you. I've got it queued up already.
Nope, I'll make you a host right now and you can do that. Give me 1 second to get there.
Just some background because I've got about 25 minutes before I need to jump off this. But the document I sent you is 23 pages long. The first 9 pages are really applicable to the article. The rest of it is, let's say it's more background information. Of the 9 beginning slides that are applicable to the town, there's only about 3 that really are applicable. So I'll try to blast through those pretty quick. Some of the sales stuff really isn't necessary to go over. But where to go? I added up. Sorry, guys. I trust everybody can see that.
Nope.
No, can't see it.
You're not sharing yet.
Okay. How about now? Sorry, guys. I had it queued up already before, and it's just not coming up.
To all of us, no problem.
Here, I got it.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Let me just get back into the Zoom call. Okay. Okay. I believe this is it. Is this what you wanted?
That's it. Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So the you'll have control of
Mhm.
that, I believe, as well. Uh,
Okay.
So
Let me know when you want me to.
that's good right there. This particular company is called Good Energy. They're one of many aggregators, but based on their track record of working 10 years in the business across the country and about 6.5 in the Northeast, they've got a pretty good following. I mean, they cover about 1 million people in in this process with about 50 towns, give or take. And they're not unrealistic in terms of their expectations, but at the same time, they seem to have the process down pretty well. Some of the problems that I've seen with these third-party aggregators is that there's been cancellation fees, which can be fairly substantial. They say that their particular program, there are no cancellation fees, so that's a plus for the town. If you can go to the next slide. This is the way this works, and is that the more people they can get, the better they can leverage pricing, and ultimately all the parties that are involved with this program from various towns would benefit financially. Realize that we're only looking at the electrical costs, not the transmission transition costs. And I believe right now the new rate that has gone into effect is about 12.4 cents a kilowatt hour. And looking at what they've provided for other towns, they're around a penny, 1.3 cents less than that right now. So there would be a savings. Depending upon how much electricity used per year, you could figure out how much you could save under this program. From my perspective, it'd be between $30 and $60 a year, depending upon how much snow we have, as well as how much daylight is affected by other weather conditions. I mean, I have solar on my house, so that definitely is a help for me. But in terms of this program, it doesn't necessarily affect the program. What will affect people that would be interested in this, if they are already with another third party aggregator, such as Direct Energy or Constellation. There's other companies out there too, and they would have to figure out how to deal with that. But given what I know about some of those other companies, this looks like this could be a savings for some people. Next slide. This is sort of the three components of electricity. It's the actual electricity itself, the source, whether it comes from solar, gas, hydro, coal, nuclear, wherever. Transmission, those are the two costs, and then to the homeowner. And the only area that's actually affected is everything on the left-hand side. That's where the electricity is, how it's transmitted. That's not affected in this. That's not impacted by this, or there's no savings associated with that. Next one. Interesting enough, this is actually a picture of Baxter State Park in Maine, so I'm not quite sure what the relevance is. But that being said, there definitely should be an opportunity for people to explore this. I can't specifically say that every single person could save a lot of money on it, but again, it's minimal legwork, minimal heavy lifting to get it going, and then the options are there. If it's 20 people, 30 people, that would be fine. If it's 100 people, several hundred people, that's fine too. So. We can skip this slide and go to the next one. There's several options. There's two options. One is simply, what I call the default option, which is, looking at the current electric supply that you have, and it's reduced based on the aggregate pricing. That, however, can break into two other areas, whether it's 50% renewable or 100% renewable, and obviously the cost does go up. And then the second component of this is sort of like a blended. It starts at a blended area where certain sources are used, and as you move to the right, you have a percentage of renewables, partial renewables, or 100% renewables. And again, the price does go up accordingly. Some people feel that this is gives them a warm, fuzzy feeling, because they can have they have a say in how their power is generated and where it's coming from. So it's essentially it's a green component in there, and yes, it is a little more expensive, but some people choose to do that. So next slide. So the implementation process, we are literally at the first square left side, simply getting to town meeting to get to authorize the work to go, and then once that's done, then everything else would follow after that. since Blythe has experience with it, I'm familiar with the process as well. And, a couple other people on the Energy Committee are familiar with these programs as well. This is, I expect most of this work would come from those few individuals to get this going. So I'll let you read through the rest of it. It's simply the implementation process and how long it would take. As I said last time in the meeting, when we met a couple weeks ago, that this would be probably eligible for, or actually implemented early 2022, simply because the time to prepare the application and the review by the Department of Public Utilities could be, up to 6 to 8 months from now. And given where we are, next calendar year, 2022 seems like a good target. So, and next slide. So that's applicable to Norfolk. Really, it's not, it's not rocket science. Dave, you might have some comments on this slide from Somerville, but it's this shows the program in Somerville, and depending upon how many people are involved with it, that does have an effect on the pricing. The more people they can get to sign up, the prices are slightly better, a little bit better. So, if anybody has any questions, just let me know, and I'll see if I can answer them.
Is that it for the stuff you want to go over?
Yeah, the rest of the stuff is supporting information. I mean, this is the stuff I call it. This, we were getting into the weeds with Good Energy, just because there were questions that came up before they gave this presentation, and they provided some backup. But for the most part, we are simply at the point of asking the town to approve the process to get the article passed, so we can initiate getting the application in, as well as selecting a consultant to manage the program.
Susan, can I add a couple of things?
Yes, of course.
So I think that was a great overview, Andy.
Hold on. I need somebody to mute.
Close to the summer 350 round trip.
What?
Somebody's not muted. I can hear a phone call in the background. Okay, great. Thank you.
So a couple things. This is also businesses in town are also eligible for it if they haven't selected another supplier already. So it might have slightly more impact on a business that uses more electricity than a typical household. Generally, when this is all approved by the DPUC and you've got your plan and you're ready to let people know, everyone who could possibly join it is sent information about it, and they have a chance to opt out. They don't have to join it if they don't want to. The folks who wouldn't be notified of it are ones who've already, as Andy said, have self-selected some other provider, and they can pick one of whatever we end up offering. And if they do absolutely nothing, they throw it away, they ignore it, they would automatically be enrolled. And what I used to tell people is the worst case is going to happen is they're likely going to save a little money. They can opt out later. They can find a better deal. The only thing these companies, only thing they will say is they don't want people coming and going and coming and going in and out of the program. They do limit that. But I think the last thing I would say is we would go through a process to determine what firm we would hire to assist us with this. We haven't made any commitments to Good Energy, and they may be the best firm for us, they might not. But as Andy pointed out, they do this. One of the things that is a positive about them is they have so many communities that they're working with that they have a bigger, when they go out to bid, it's a little more meaningful than one town by one town. So as he said, we can't guarantee what the outcome would be, but something like that might be more advantageous. So I just wanted to make those points.
Do we know yet how much it's going to cost?
It won't cost the town anything. When they put it out to bid and they negotiate the rate, their cost to do this work is baked into that rate. So we're saving 1 cent off the rate. That is already factored into that.
But even the consultant that you've mentioned and all that's factored in.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant. That their expenses to get the plan through the DPUC, put it out to bid, put together all the marketing materials, answer questions. That's all covered in that. They'll when they go out to bid, they'll factor that cost into the ultimate rate that we settle on. And it's up to us. If we go out to bid at a certain time of year and the rate isn't ideal, we don't have to take it. we might get it approved in early 2022, but there might be a better time of year than others to go out to bid. And we might say, you know what, we're going to pass right now. We're going to wait until we can be sure we're offering our residents a better deal than what's on the table right now.
And who would be making that decision? Energy committee, select board, who's the we that would pass or not pass?
I'd say we haven't talked that through, but I would want to have the energy committee's blessing on that, and then ultimately probably the select board.
Jonathan?
Two questions. First, Andy mentioned one of the benefits of this particular company where there was no cancellation fees. Is that something that's typically contractually agreed upon, or are those fine print T's and C's that can change at some point in the future?
The fine print is exactly what you need to be careful of when you go out on your own, where this is more of a larger purchase. And one of the selling points is that there are no cancellation fees. But as Blythe said, you can't join 1 month and drop out of next month and go back and keep going back and forth. They're not. That's just not cool.
Well, I guess I understand that, but is that a guarantee to the residents who enroll that?
That's going to be written into the contract that there is no cancellation fee. And that was actually a question I had asked them, because I can speak from experience. About 20 people in Norfolk that I've talked with over the past 10 years who have been hit by substantial cancellation fees because they've chosen to do this independently on their own. And when they choose to go back to Eversource, it's, they're seeing, several $100s worth of fees. So any savings that they saw over the previous years, are gone. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. One other question I have is that opt-out approach common? Because that kind of seems the inverse of what a typical opt-in approach should be, right? Meaning if you send a resident something and they do nothing, typically the expected behavior would be nothing would change. And this, as I understand it, is the exact opposite of that, which is it's like forced enrollment unless you do take action. And is that common in these types of arrangements? And if so, why is that?
Yeah, I mean, I see Dave is shaking his head, and I know he's been in the weeds a little bit deeper than some of this stuff than I have. So I'll let him, if he wants to answer that. He's got the floor. You have to unmute Dave.
Essentially, Jonathan, what it is that the state law allows municipalities to decide who their supplier is going to be, and the only way they could make that work was for an opt-out rather than an opt-in. It wouldn't have been a viable option if you had to then take a poll of everyone in town and figure out who was going to actually opt in. So they set it up in such a way that you can opt out, and it's a fairly easy process. But to go the other way, it wouldn't have worked for municipal aggregation, basically.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I think it's incumbent upon the town, working with whomever we do, to have a robust program of advertising, something on the website, making people very aware that this is coming, what the choices are. And then there might be, multiple choices. You might want the cleanest and greenest version, or you might want the cheapest and dirtiest. So people know and they can make that educated decision.
Okay. And then if I can, one last question. I mean, the presentations are always very kumbaya. What are the horror stories here? Like how and why would something like this end badly, either for the town or for any individual resident?
Jonathan, I can speak of, well, as I said before, the opt-out issues, the contractual issues. I mean, those are not quite similar here, but usually the contract issues and making sure everyone reads the fine print. That's probably the most critical thing. The other thing too is possible bookkeeping errors at Eversource and the new supplier where you're getting double billed. And I have seen that happen in a couple cases. But yeah, I mean, it's got to be a real tight control on the information, making sure that the contract is tight and people know exactly what they're getting into.
Yeah, well, I guess where I was really going with the question is, there's a little disclaimer at the end saying we don't know what your basic service rates will be, so we can't tell you what your savings will be.
Yep.
Is that something you need to read between the lines? Meaning, it wasn't that there's any guarantee of any savings. I mean, if you want to pick the cheapest and dirtiest rate, I mean, could there be, you get into an upside down situation where we're actually paying more than what we would get sourcing it from Eversource directly?
Every 6 months the rates are changed. So I mean that could happen. That could happen if you look at some of the additional information that was in there. For the most part, except for I believe there was one period that the rates that were being provided were less than the EverSource supplier. So I'm going to say more often than not, you will see a lower rate. It could be the same rate, but it's all based on market demand and how many people are enrolled in the program too. So that's something that's something. Yeah, I mean it's a risk. It's a risk that you take. Just like anything, it's not playing the stock market, but it's still one of those things that, there is a risk. Yes.
I think for some of them, like, I think it was Somerville, that most of the time they were beating it, but, in 1 6-month period, it was slightly higher. Net out of the whole year, it was still a savings. And so you might save $13, in one half of the year per month and $6 in the other half. I think we need to be careful that this isn't going to make people's electricity bills plummet. It's going to save them a little bit on what they're already spending. And if we can help them with that, that's what we're trying to do. With goalposts around it, so they're not going to see the horror stories that Andy has experienced talking to some residents.
Thank you.
Mike, you had your hand up. Did you lower it because
I did? Well, I do have a new question, which is like, so if we're talking about minimal savings, additional work at the select board, possibly some headaches because there's automatic enrollment. I'm just kind of curious, like, just like, I mean, I assume you're in support of this, having experience, and you think that the sort of the benefits, even though they're minimal, they're worth,
I really do, because there's been enough time where there's a ton of communities already doing this. We're not breaking ground here, and and the firm, whoever we hire, is gonna be chasing all these details down for us. It's really a decision-making process for us, and handling. I'm sure there'll be calls from residents like, what happened? Why are you doing this? And we'll field those. But I've had experience both as starting a program in a community and then benefiting from one in the community I live in now. And it's been, I think it's worth the effort. Said earlier, it's a way to help our residents save a little money without a lot of work on our part. I think that's a great thing to do.
And Andy, for somebody who has solar, I'm just, because so many of us are, sort of in business already with the energy companies, and in that we're either selling, energy back or whatever. I mean, is this a point of headache for rolling out a program like this? If I forgot to opt out, do you see that as an issue that comes up?
Mike, that question was kind of half asked last time, and I've been trying to do some research on it about if you have a PPA, meaning that you're purchasing your power from someone who installed panels on your roof and you're leasing from them. I don't have a good answer for that. I know people that do own their systems directly. Really, it's no problem. I mean, the power that's made up that you purchase from the grid would simply see that discounted rate. The transmission pricing would still be the same. So that's pretty clear cut. But a PPA situation, I don't have a good answer for you, and I hopefully can get you something here sooner than later. I just haven't been able to find something.
But we haven't, and maybe for Blythe as well, we haven't heard a lot of noise from, that wasn't a source of complaints from the towns where this has been rolled out. No. Okay.
Nope.
David?
A couple questions, and it's sort of related to the cost thing. The Attorney General came out with a report last week about people who individually buy competitive supply, and it was not a good report. It would be important for us to have data on municipal aggregation versus individuals, because it was a huge issue for individuals who are buying competitive electricity supply. So I would just caution that that's something that needs to be addressed. I don't know if Good Energy did any of that work or if the DPU has aggregated any of that data, but it's something that I would like to have some understanding of. Is there data on what the average municipality has saved. I mean, Andy, you've said 30 to 60 bucks a year. Blythe, you said a couple bucks, 3, 4, 5, 10 bucks, 15 bucks a month. But is there aggregated data that would help us understand that better?
Well, Dave, it's also depending upon if you have 100 customers that join versus 1,000.
No, I'm not arguing that. I know that it's an issue that's in the news for people who pay attention to this stuff. And
I think it's important to point out that we're not the individual.
No, I understand that. Right.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that might come up, because it was somewhat recently in the news, is this going to be a situation where my power price can go up and down a la Texas, and it's not that either.
Right. Those are questions that will need to be answered in a town meeting setting at a minimum. So,
Dave, was that report on the DOER website, or where was that?
No, the Attorney General had a press release. She released a report on it last week. It was really bad.
I'll track it down then.
It was in the Globe. I saw it.
Sometimes at town meeting, these things can just go through with very
spin
little
out.
questions,
Yeah.
and then other times they will get bogged down in the weeds with very, very detailed questions. So I think that both Andy and Blythe and probably David, you need to be prepared to answer them and hope for the best.
Right.
Can I ask one more question about, and I apologize, I had I had a vaccine this morning. I'm a little out of it. So I may have not have tracked everything perfectly. So if, you mentioned there's kind of like the, cheaper, dirty version, just the base version, right, of what you could pick. And then there's you could opt for a more expensive, energy efficient version of the energy. Is the base version any greener than what we would currently have with Eversource? Like, is that, prices
could be.
Would that be a good enough reason for someone to want to switch?
It could be. I mean, that we'll have to decide what our default will be, whether it's going to be all the cheapest power or some element of green. And then how many options do we want to provide as well, so that people have the choice? Because we've heard from some people who said, yeah, I really would like to pay more than I'm paying now and support green energy. And other people are like, save me as much as you can. I want the cheapest one. So that'll be part of working with a consultant, figure out what the right options are for Norfolk.
Right. Because I think it was Mike that kind of alluded to this. It's like, well, it's all this work, and if the cost savings to the average user is not very much, I wonder at town meeting if people will feel like it's worth making the change. And I do think that if people could spend the same amount roughly, but just be greener with that same amount being spent, that's actually one way to help kind of frame it.
Yep.
Jonathan, was your hand still up from before, or did you have a question?
I just didn't lower it.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. David? David, you still have a question?
Damn it. Sorry. Yep. No, I was muted. Sorry. Kristen, to answer your question, if you're a competitive supplier in Massachusetts, you have to meet the same obligations as the utilities. So you will have the same minimum mix of renewables and clean energy in your provision of energy. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay. All right. Does everybody feel comfortable sorry, I was trying to sneak a bite of food in between. Does everybody feel comfortable that they have all of the information from Andy so he can get out of here? Because I know he has to go.
I'm just got an email saying that I'm off for 15 more minutes. So
Okay.
You still have me for at least another 15 more. So.
Well, I think we're probably, unless somebody has a new question, I think we're probably ready to wrap up. Anyone? Last chance? Going once? All right. Thank you, Andy. I think that David can probably answer our questions, should we have any, when we get to the debating process of how we're going to recommend this article. So I think we're all set. So thank you so much for attending.
Okay.
I think Blythe will be better than I am.
Between the two of you, obviously.
So if depending upon what's decided, I'll pull stuff together and we'll get a.
I'm assuming you're going to be at town meeting though, right?
I have every plan to, yes. But
okay.
yes. Yep.
So sometimes that can go very smoothly and sometimes it can go off the rails. So just
Yep.
hold on.
Andy's driven a few off the rails.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, guys.
All right. If nobody has anything on Article 19 that they want to talk about, I will move on to Hillary and Article 20 with the animal control regulation changes.
Actually, if you'll indulge me,
Of course.
I'm going to take point on this for Hillary and Carol, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
I do want to ask though, I saw Kevin's dog with him. I'm wondering if the dog can take over for us. No, not so much. All right. So about a year ago, it came to our attention that our animal regulations were out of date on a couple of fronts, and also, maybe not working as well as they should for Norfolk, in 2021. So Hillary and Carol and I formed a team to start working on these. We worked on them a lot over the summer. Thought about bringing them to town meeting in the fall, but we had the citizen petition as well. Select board decided to hold off, and we focused on spring of 21. So here we are. So I sent to Susan, I think you probably all have it, a memo. I'm going to go old school tonight. I didn't make a PowerPoint, and go over the main points with you. And then Carol and Hillary are here to provide real world comparisons and situations that hopefully will bring it all to light. I think the biggest, the driving reason to update these bylaws is because in 2012, the state undertook a project and significantly updated the regulations on dogs. And prior to that point, when there were dogs that were vicious or dangerous, as the term might be, or a nuisance, towns were able to hold other processes that they felt were right, make decisions about animals. In some cases, if a dog was really bad, banish it out of town, just hope it goes somewhere else. And the state decided that just wasn't really working and they needed to overhaul it. And they did so, chapter 140, sections 136 through 174. Our bylaws have been updated as recently as 2011, but they weren't in compliance with that. And that really became even clearer last summer when we had an event with a dog that was finally eventually deemed dangerous, and navigating that process. So as I say, the biggest reason is those changes, and there still have been changes since then, and this version will bring us up to date with everything the state has done. And it sets clear process and decision-making points for select boards or whoever is the hearing officer about how to handle either nuisance dogs or dogs that are deemed dangerous. So I would lead with that. Secondly, the second reason for doing all this was to update our licensing. We're not planning to change any of the basic fees that anybody pays to license their dog. But what we realized was, and I know Carol will be able to speak to this especially, is that we have had a very long license period. It goes 5 months. And then the penalty, if you haven't licensed your dog, is $15 to start, and it goes up by $5 a month. Very honestly, we find that, that isn't enough of an incentive for people to get licensed. And the amount of time and resources we take to chase after people, get them to license their animal or find out that the animal's not with them anymore, all that has just been, kind of a not good use of resources. And in fact, in the area of late fees, the state law is very clear. If you haven't paid on time, the fee is $50. It's just straight $50. So we need to be in compliance with that. And we're recommending that the license period be shorter from January 1st to the end of March, which is very consistent with a lot of communities. Most of them have shortened it to that period. That's a second major reason. Leash law, always a fun topic in most communities. We've had, some semblance of a leash law, dogs being under control, voice control, and so on. But we felt for a number of reasons that we needed to update it a little bit. As a community like Norfolk gets a little more denser in population and people closer by, more certainly in the pandemic, lots of dogs being integrated into families. There's just more dogs out there. We needed to make sure that it was clear where a dog can be and comply with the law. Wanted to make some changes to voice command rules so that it was probably easier for someone to comply with it. We felt that the reference to a competent person controlling a dog was pretty hard to determine in a situation whether a person's competent or not. And we also felt that even though the current bylaws speak to animals in recreation areas and so on, it wasn't really clear that what a different board or committee who has control of different parcels of land in town, that they could make the rules that make sense for that parcel of land. So for instance, the schools, control certain properties, recreation, same thing, select board, conservation commission, and they may have, for different reasons, they may want to have, various boards may want to have dogs in some areas or not in others. And we felt that that decision-making was best left with each of them for the property that they're responsible for. So we clarified that. Temporary restraining orders was a big issue during the situation we had last summer, in that the bylaw allowed for the animal control officer to restrain it, have a dog restrained for a while. But that was very awkward when we're trying to, at the same time, give a grieved party, some assurance the dog was not going to do something else. Give the owner of the animal the time to prepare for the hearing process that would happen, and comply with the open meeting law. And the intersection of all those things was challenging. So while none of us thinks that, quote, locking up a dog any longer than possible is something that we really want to have happen, we want to make sure that everybody involved in whatever the situation is has time to do what they need to do so it's a fair and equitable outcome. Last thing that we tackled was violations and penalties, and the select board took this up also at their meeting before last night. We felt that, in some cases there needed to be stricter fines and penalties, but we felt it was also important to draw a difference between a dog that occasionally roams, because that does happen, and a dog that's a nuisance or dangerous. That they're different in a lot of ways, and we felt that how you handle a dog that might get lucky enough to break free and roam a little bit is different than a dog that's dangerous or persistent nuisance. So we've put in two different sets depending on what the situation is, and on the advice of counsel offered both the non-criminal disposition and the Chapter 140 process with different amounts, because at the end of the day, I think everybody knows that it's been our practice to try to work things out with people, to try to be, help owners do the right thing. And our interest is not how much can we charge people for something. But if there's a situation, we want to make sure that the town is doing what it should to get an owner to understand that they need to comply with whatever the situation is. The last thing I'd say is that one thing we haven't suggested changing is the section that came up under the citizens petition last fall about animals that make disturbing noises, and the interest by the petitioner at the time that animals should be able to make noise between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. While we certainly understand that and in some ways are very sympathetic to it, we also heard the debate last fall and the difficulties of what that would mean in various situations. We just felt it was best to leave it as it is. So that section hasn't changed at all. So that's a pretty high level of what we've looked to accomplish. The town council has vetted it and also spoken with the Attorney General's office. We've both Carol and Hillary and I looked at a number of different communities, that have updated them. We feel very comfortable that if town meeting sought to approve this, it would be approved by the AG as well. So I would definitely welcome Hillary or Carol filling anything that I might have left out, because they've been on this journey with me.
I don't really have a whole lot to say. I think Blythe covered it very well. I'm happy with the end result that's been presented. And I think it's definitely going to help clarify and make ease of enforcement more efficient. So I'm happy with this rendition. And the only thing that I think that wasn't brought up was in the area where we hold animals stray or otherwise. We did add the word cat in as well. And I know that I've spoken in other meetings because cats are also considered private property. And under private property laws, stray cats, under different segments of law, we might have to hold them for 6 months or up to a year under the private property law. Even if they are stray cats and we don't necessarily know the owner, because there are plenty of studies, and even in the Act of 2012, where they shortened the hold period for dogs because of those studies saying if people weren't calling for their missing dog within a certain set period of time, the chances are that they weren't going to follow through and reach out. So animals out of the shelter as much as possible. They shortened it from a 10-day hold period to a 7-day hold period. And we would like to mirror that with cats as well. There have been other towns that have added the cat provision. I am working with the MSPCA legislator as well to hopefully bring this to light as a state law as well in the future. But our goal is always with any animal that's not claimed to get it through the shelter experience as quickly as possible so that they don't languish in a shelter environment, and that we can get them into a nurturing environment. And I think that should apply to cats as well.
Thanks, Hillary. I did not bring that up, so I'm glad that you did. Carol, what do
Hillary,
you think?
oh, sorry, excuse me. I just have one quick question for Hillary. What that means is you're shortening the amount of time that you're keeping them on site for you, but then they would go to a foster home situation?
So I can't say that would be what it would be. For cats, we normally do not adopt out directly. Anybody that we get in that is adoptable, and I would say 99.5% of all of our animals go through the adoption process, but there are some animals that have quality of life issues, end of life situations where they could not be placed, or that they are so highly aggressive that they are a liability to the town if we were to do a placement like that. All of our cats go through Perfect Cat Shelter in Millis. So once the hold period is up, what we do is we send them over to the vet that we contract with. We do a full examination, combo test, rabies vaccine, deworm, microchip. If they're not spayed and neutered, we do that up front. And then we transfer the custody of the cat over to the Perfect Cat Shelter. They have a much higher customer base than just the town of Norfolk. They have a huge outreach on social media. And literally every cat that we have put through there in the past year, it's basically like they come in and they fly off the shelf as quickly as they get there. The only time that we ever question placement is when there is a behavior issue that is so devastating that there could be a liability issue that could impact the town itself. But all of our cats go through Perfect Cat Shelter.
Okay, sorry, I was muted. All right, thank you. Carol, were you going to weigh in on something? I'm sorry, I cut you off a little bit.
No, that's okay. So my end of it is more the licensing period and licensing fees as well as late fees. I got to say, Hillary and I work very, very hard, and we have probably Hill, about a 99.8% compliance rate with licensing in Norfolk. That is not without spending a whole lot of time and a whole lot of town money to pursue people to try to get them to license their dogs. I think one of the issues is that our licensing period is too long. The longer you give somebody to pay a bill, the easier it is to toss it aside and forget about it. Most of the, like Blythe said, most of the towns around us, it's April, you have to be licensed by April 1st, 90 days. Rentham has they got a real motivator working over there. If you don't license by the 1st of March, their late fee is $50 per dog. And then May 1st, it goes up to an additional $100 per dog. So Rentham's pretty serious about things. But like Blythe said, Mass General Law is very clear on late fees. It actually states shall be assessed a penalty of not less than $50. Pretty plain and simple. So that is something that, we definitely have to adjust. As far as the actual fees go, we want people to license. So, $10 and $15, we're not looking to raise that. We just want to, tighten up the time and try to get in compliance with the law.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Carol.
Blythe, do you have anything else to add?
No, I'd be happy to take questions. I think any questions you have will help us better prepare for town meeting. So bring them on.
David, it looks like you're raising your hand, sort of.
Sort of.
Waving at me anyway.
So I know you addressed it, but I'm wondering what kind of discussions do you have about the nuisance thing at the select board's level, given what went on last spring? Was there any consideration to any changes to the nuisance portion of this, or? I understand what happened last.
Right. So
that last fall? Yeah, it was last fall.
Yep. So that situation was a dog that was deemed dangerous, which is is different than a dog that's a nuisance. I think I would generally describe a nuisance dog as a dog that is a habitual.
No. I'm sorry. I meant the citizens petition that was brought to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
No, that's okay. I mean, and you did raise it in your presentation, but you said that given the discussion at last fall's meeting, there was a sense not to go forward. Was that kind of the basis of that? Is there any wiggle room there? I'm just curious because I'm assuming
the select board individually, they didn't vote a position on that petition last fall. Individually, they did not support it. And so when we brought this same presentation to them in early March, we invited the petitioner, we let her know that we weren't gonna oppose it. They agreed with our recommendation that it should stay as it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Have you heard from the citizen from last year, Erica? I think that was her name, right, Erica?
So I reached out to her proactively and told her that we were getting ready to bring this forward to town meeting, and that, it was staff sense not to change it, but that if she wanted to, what was her thought? And her thought was that at the core, she thought animals should be able to make whatever noise between 7 a.m. and p.m. And I told her that we appreciate that. That's not what staff was going to recommend, but she was more than welcome to come to the meeting, or somehow reach out to the board and let them know her thoughts on it. And I have not spoken to her. She did not come to the meeting. We haven't spoken since.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't see anybody's hand up right now, so I'll just ask this. Hillary, based on feedback that you've gotten, are you expecting any of this to, I hate to use the pun, but ruffle any feathers at town meeting? Sorry, I'm not really a pun person, but anyway.
10 points for you.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think 95% of what we're doing is just to get with the times and compliant. I think that our changes with our leash law are not overbearing in any way whatsoever. I think it still allows some give and take as to how people are going to manage their dogs in public. I believe the language in it will be able to definitively allow me to investigate and possibly enforce infractions better, just due to the language of how it's drafted. I personally, as Carol mentioned and Blythe has mentioned, we do a lot of chasing to recover fees from citations. And I think that updating our citation amounts with what is consistent with state law and other towns, I think would definitely curb some of the behavior. I don't know too many people that, I can speak from the people that I'm citing more frequently than others. A verbal warning, a written warning, $15 or $30, it's or 50 at the most, is not impactful enough. And the costs to process those citations, represent them in court, it really takes a lot of labor. And I believe that we can cut some of that filing and processing time down. And I think what it comes back to is I think we can start to curb some behavior with updating our fee schedule and our fine schedule.
I would bring up one area that I think people might be concerned about just based on recent issues, which is everyone's favorite topic of dog poop. Sorry to be graphic, but it has been an issue, and the bylaw said and still does say, it's written differently, that you have to pick up, after your dog on public or private property, either by the owner or the keeper of the dog or who's got control of the dog. The bylaw used to say that your dog would be deemed a nuisance if they did that. That section didn't comply with state law today. So, we even toyed around with, and we've had, I guess Hillary's had people call up and complain that an owner on their own property is not picking up after their dog, let alone people who walk their dog not picking up. We're not solving that issue here. We're just updating it and expecting people to do the right thing. And the age-old problem is, someone can be doing something bad and not picking up, but it certainly is real difficult to catch them. So
I think that's funny.
Hillary knows more than I do about it, but
Hillary, I think it's funny that you got called for that as complaints when I had a dog, which he passed away a couple of years ago. So I don't have a dog right now, but I hired a company because I didn't want to pick up my dog poop. So I had a pooper scooper company come and do it through the whole yard. And I used to get feedback from people that they thought that was ridiculous, that they couldn't believe that I would have a company come do it. I'm like, $17. That was it. $17 to not ever have to pick up dog poop.
Yeah.
But, is there any way, I know one of the big things, I was kidding about that, by the way, but one of the big things on the community page is that people are bagging their dog poop and then not taking it with them. Is there anything in here that addresses that?
Same
I
thing, right?
don't think it would fall under, if you bag your poop, you must carry it in your hand. But if they are bagging their poop and they put it down on a stone wall or on the sidewalk and say, I'm coming back for it, they have lost possession of their poop. And to me, that would fall under littering at that point. Everybody should be carrying all of what their dog's business with them. Because you don't know if you're going to come back around. You might change your path, or you might be just saying that and have no intention to pick up your dog's waste. So I personally think that if that is their excuse, I would look at a littering situation, which is a higher fine. But I think the hard thing is with the pooper scooper law is we need to have enough probable cause. And for that, we need help from the public, because I can't be sitting at every park every minute of the day. If people do have a legitimate complaint, and, we can sit down and figure out who this person is, I'm all for knocking on their door and having a chat with them.
Okay.
Sorry, I just felt we ought to get it out there.
Hillary, you should ask for an increase to your gastrointestinal analysis budget.
I personally, the poop thing is one of the least offensive parts of my job.
Yeah, this is why I've always said I have no idea why anyone would ever complain about the ACO line in the budget, because this is a job that most people wouldn't want to do. So I appreciate all the work you do, for sure. Does anyone have any questions pertaining to the regulations?
One other thing. So one is that I'm glad that at town meeting we'll have a chance to talk about these things. But I will also, just as a comment, I'm a new dog owner, and getting my dog registered, Nacho got registered, and it was the most pleasant, easiest experience ever. And so I want to thank everybody, Carolyn, everybody who was involved.
Thanks, Mike. We try.
Can I ask a quick semi follow-up, I guess? Carol and Hillary, you said this is a long drawn out process of the registration, et cetera, et cetera. Are there frequent flyers? I mean, is there a group that you
Yes.
want to make sure they know about this before
yes.
town meeting? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And every year that we go through, if you're talking about licensing and relicensing compliance, yes, I would say probably, I don't want to speak out of turn. Maybe Carol has the percentages, but I would say anywhere from 35 to 45% of our list every year is the same individuals.
Right.
And I think that's why I think increasing the penalty will curb the frequent flyer behavior.
Yep.
That's probably a fair number. It's the same people year after year.
Yep.
And again, we spend, it's not like, and it comes to a surprise to these people every single year, which, kind of amazes me. But we do, honestly, we do the dog licensing thing that comes out with your census. So far this year, we have done that. We have done a round of postcards to the people that didn't license. We've done a round of emails. The next step is Hillary will do a round of phone calls before she writes the violations. Then she writes the violations, and then you have that round. And we still have, what, Hillary, 7 or 8 from last year?
Yeah, I believe it's somewhere around 6 or 7.
Yeah, they haven't paid the violation, and because the courts with COVID and everything are backed up, but we usually wind up going to court, what, November, December, something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Does your, you had mentioned one of the things, it's hard for me to recall exactly the wording because it wasn't in front of me when Blythe was reading it, but I believe she said something where she was referring to nuisance dogs, and there was a difference between a dog that just gets out to roam occasionally and a dog that's perpetually out, and a dog that is a nuisance when it is out or causing issues in whatever way, even not necessarily in a negative way, just an issue in general, whether it be running in front of cars or whatever. Does that bylaw specifically say dog, or does it apply to all animals? I'm just curious if it applies to goats and peacocks and things like that, that also tend to escape frequently.
So our state law is what we're mirroring most of this off of is pertains to dogs. However, we do have in Article 13, Section 1, where it does address loose livestock, crossing roadways or sidewalks or stuff like that. So we do have some remedial action for loose livestock in that fashion, but Chapter 140 for what we are mirroring after under state law, it's mostly addresses dogs as far as nuisance situations. And it's not often that we get to the level where we have to have a nuisance dog hearing. I don't want to pop the cork on this, but there may be one coming up relatively soon. I see Blythe. Sorry. But it does happen. So we definitely, it's not just because, hey, the dog might not be a bother, but if I've picked your dog up from roaming in the middle of a street that has a 40-mile-an-hour zone more than 15, 20 times, there is an issue. And my big thing is trying to change the behavior of the owner to make sure that dog is safe and it doesn't end up coming home in a way that would be miserable for the family. And sadly, sometimes and more often than I would care to admit, I do bring home deceased dogs because they have not kept their animal properly contained.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Carol or Hillary? Any other discussion on the animal regulation changes? No. Okay. Sounds like we're all set. Thank you so much for speaking and for coming. Thank you, Carol. While we have Carol, does anyone have, let me just pull it up so I can read the wording. Does anyone have any, I doubt it, but does anyone have any questions on Article 1 just while she's here? Article 1 is the one that allows for voting. It just allows you to be able to select a candidate and vote. I'm just checking.
You actually can't have any questions on Article 1. It is the election. It is what it is. The election happens before town meetings, so your questions are invalid.
Okay, there we go. All right, so good to know. There we go. No questions on Article 1. Does anyone have any other questions for Carol or Hillary? If not, you guys are welcome to stick around or you can go. It's totally up to you. All right. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So it is 8:16. So I would like to revisit the question that I had earlier. Would you guys like to take 15, 20 minutes and run through some of the easy ones? And I say that in quote marks because we never know. Or does everyone want to end now and just try to fit everything in next week?
I guess I'm changing my position. If folks want to stay and do it, I'm happy to do it.
Okay. So
What
I
if I
guess.
change my position, Michael?
Come on, David. I've got the warrant pulled up. I can quickly run through, and as long as Erica is all set with taking the minutes and keeping track, we can go through with which ones we can take care of. Blythe, obviously remind me which ones I'm not allowed to vote on yet, because I've, again, past 3 years, I just sat there and voted when someone told me to. So is that good with everybody?
Yep.
All right. So Article 1, really doesn't pertain because I don't think we can vote no. So I'm assuming there's no reason to have a discussion about it.
I move that the advisory committee endorse Article 1.
Generally have never endorsed Article 1.
Okay, fine,
Happens
then
before town
I move, okay.
meeting.
So I believe we state in the warrant that the advisory board takes no position. Is that correct?
We don't have anything.
Okay,
Okay,
great. Article 2, we have no bills from.
Correct. Right now, no unpaid bills, so you can recommend an indefinite postponement.
I move that we indefinitely postpone Article 2.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of indefinite postponement of Article 2, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone not in favor of Article 2, please say nay. All right, it passes unanimously. Erica, in case no one told you, you have to write down who made the motion as well as who seconded it. So I
Thank you.
believe that was, the motion was made by David Lutz and it was seconded by
Kristen.
Kristen. Thank you.
I got it.
All right.
Thank you for that, Susan.
Yeah. Article 3 is transfer.
Transfers.
Do we have any
I would
transfer?
recommend we wait until town meeting. Todd and I are putting that together over the next 2 or 3 weeks. So generally, I think you take it up at town meeting when we've flushed that all out.
We usually do it the hour before, correct?
I mean, we'll have snow removal. I'm sure there's some others. He and I need to talk about it.
Okay. Article 4 is the compensation schedule, which is to provide the 1.5 COLA to non-union employees, which, correct me, Blythe, is that the one we took away last year because of COVID?
That's correct there. Those employees did not receive it. We have included in the budget the amount that's here in the article. So I would say that you can take an action on this.
If no one has anything they'd like to discuss,
I do actually.
Okay, go ahead.
Blythe, is this one of the ones that the selectmen haven't actually formally voted on yet, or what?
They haven't, but they don't typically vote on each article. They decide to support the warrant or not. So as they know that the budget is balanced, I fully expect that they would support this article.
Can I ask how much money it is? Because I don't have my paperwork in front of me right now.
I'm going to ask my capable finance director to weigh in on that, because I know he knows the number.
Works out to be $40,228.
Thank you.
Anything else? Would someone like to make a motion on Article 4?
Move that we approve Article 4.
Second.
All right, I believe that was seconded by David Lutz. All in favor of approving Article 4, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to Article 4's approval? Please say nay. All right, Article 4 passes unanimously. Kevin, would you like us to skip Article 5 for now until the select board meets next week? Mr.
All
Cal.
these connecting, I assume, they won't meet again until the 20th.
Oh,
They don't meet next week.
okay. Well, then we will have to vote on that without them voting. So it's fine if we
Here he
vote now,
comes.
or we can put it off.
Can we put it off for a week? I'd like everyone here.
Yep, no problem. We'll put off Article 5 till next week. Erica, please make a note that we're waiting on Article 5 because I'm quite sure I'm going to forget that when I'm going through the numbers. Just remind me that we still need to vote on that next week.
Will do.
Article 6 is the Water Enterprise Fund. Anyone have
Select
any
board,
further
we did
questions?
review that last night as well as Article 7. Again, they didn't take a specific vote, but there weren't questions about it. So
Okay. Well, we already most everybody here already went through this with you when you did your budget, but if there are any questions on 6 or 7, which both deal with water, one is the enterprise fund and the other one is the wastewater division. Does anyone have any questions on the water enterprise fund or the wastewater division while we are on the topic? No. Okay. Like a motion on Article 6, please.
I move to approve Article 6.
Second.
Thank you, Kristen. All right, all in favor of approving Article 6, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to Article 6, please say nay. Article 6 passes unanimously. Article 7, like a motion on Article 7, please.
Move to approve Article 7.
Okay.
I second.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jonathan. Article 7, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
May I ask a quick question on this?
Of course.
Based on the presentation we had in the zoning articles thing, I'm not sure. I know there's a study underway, and is there any expected impact during 2022 on this budget, Blythe, that you're aware of? Or Todd?
The study and this are completely separate matters. This is the annual cost
Right.
to maintain, run the plant. The study is to determine whether or not to set up a separate sewer fund, sewer enterprise location, a plant. And there'll need to be discussion on that if it was proposed to really go forward, because we probably would need some seed money from the town to get it underway beyond what the grant would cover that ends in June.
Thank you.
Okay, so it was, motion was made by, I think, Michael. I'm so sorry. Was that
Jonathan muted and I.
Jonathan? Okay, Jonathan made the motion and it was seconded by Mike. So if we could have all in favor of Article 7 passing, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, Article 7 passes unanimously. Oh, I kind of pulled them up, so I hope everybody can see the screen share now. Makes it a little bit easier. Article 8 is the request to authorize purchase capital items with cash funding. We don't have any, so are we just IPing this, Blythe?
Yes, please.
Okay, like a motion to IP Article 8, please.
Move to IP Article 8.
I second.
Okay, all in favor of indefinite postponement of Article 8, as there are no capital expenses at this time, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please say nay. Article 8 passes. Article 9 is, again, request to purchase capital items through debt funding versus cash. Blythe, are there any of these?
No.
No. Okay, so we're going to indefinitely postpone this one as well. Please, someone please make a motion for.
I move to IP Article 9.
I second.
Thank you. Article 9, if you are in favor of indefinite postponement, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, Article 9 passes unanimously as well. Article 10, the advisory committee takes no position on this. Article 11 is request authorization to the expenditure limits of the revolving fund on the Council on Aging. So this is part of what we discussed last week with Sherry. Is that her name?
Sherry's coming next week.
Sherry's
so if
coming
you
next
wanted
week.
to,
Never mind. We want to wait.
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize. You're right. Sorry, I'm getting my week. I send all the emails booking them, so I feel like I've already discussed it. So I apologize. Article 12 is the mitigation fund, correct?
yes, it's a town match to federal dollars to develop a hazard mitigation plan. The
Okay.
grant.
I move to support Article. Wait, what's the word I'm looking for?
Approve.
But
Approve Article 12.
Approve Article 12. All right, can I get a second? Was that Kristen seconding?
I was actually going to ask a question because I
Oh,
know.
yes. Go ahead before it's seconded, please.
Live, can you remind me where that money fund would be coming from? Is it in the
We would recommend it comes from free cash.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Seconded by,
Right now.
do I have a second?
I'll second it. Kristen.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. All in favor of approving Article 12 as written in the warrant for the mitigation plan grant, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. That also passes unanimously. Article 13 is, okay, so these 13 through 17 are going to be discussed next week when CPC comes. So we'll wait on those just in case there are any questions. Article 18, this is where you can voluntarily donate money to defray the cost of real estate taxes for the elderly and disabled persons. This is a volunteer situation. No one's making anyone do it.
Harry will also be here to talk to you about that next week if you'd like to.
Yeah.
You could go down now or wait for her
Why don't we wait?
input.
Okay. Okay, we can wait on that one. Is that part of the Council on Aging as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Article 19 was discussed this evening, and it is the energy bill, which we just discussed, which gives residents a chance to opt into a program that lets them be part of a study that will see if we can lower their energy bills, and if we can, buy it at a different rate.
Susan, you didn't say it exactly right. It creates a program that makes people either opt out or be enrolled in it.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Instead of opt in, that it gives them the option of opting out, or they are automatically enrolled, but they can leave at any point. Do we have any further discussion on this? Yes, David.
Blythe, it kind of came up during the discussion we had when Andy was in, but I guess I didn't ask the question. I wrote notes, but I'm writing with my left hand, so I can't read them. What entity within this town would be responsible for this process? I mean, staff-wise, I understand what you said. The select board would ultimately be responsible for decisions on who we end up contracting with and things like that. But I'm just wondering, what I've done this. I didn't do this actually in one of the other municipalities I worked for, and it was partially over the kind of staffing issues. And I'm wondering who would be like making sure that on a monthly basis we were checking the supply number, the rate, you know,
Sure.
It's one of those questions that if I have a question as a resident because I get a bill I don't understand, who am I going to call?
I would say they would either call my office or they'd call Matt Hafner, Facilities. He deals with
Right.
all the town's electric accounts now.
And he'll end up being somewhat responsible for this.
He and I both support the Energy Committee now,
Right.
so
Okay.
I think it would be a natural fit.
All right, that's kind of what I figured, but thank you.
Okay. If there's no further questions, does anyone have an issue voting on this tonight?
I think Mike and I both have hands up.
Oh,
Virtual, I figured it out.
I apologize. I'm screen sharing, so I can't see you guys right now because of the
Mike, do you want to go first?
No, you please.
Sure. So I have a question. So I think like what often happens at town meeting is people will say, okay, like what's the next guardrail here, right? So if the town voted to pass this as it's written, you know, vote to grant select board the authority to research, develop, and participate, what are the future times or venues that someone would be able to kind of hear what's happening and still have another chance to you know, shape it or have an opinion on it, right? Because I think some people in town will worry that if this gets voted as is today, there's not another opportunity to shape it. And so what would you see as kind of the actual process by which residents could continue to weigh in on it as it goes?
So a couple thoughts. For the process, I would suggest that it is that we would then, we being Matt and I, with the help of the Energy Committee, would go out and select a consulting firm to work with us and shepherd us through the process. They would then help us and invite the public to participate in developing the program, the plan that has to be submitted to the Department of Utilities at the state. And in doing so, making the decision, recommending to the select board whether we, how many choices we're going to offer in our plan, whether all green or 50% green or no green, something like that. I think that's an excellent place for people to participate. That plan gets done, gets blessed by the board, goes off to the state, maybe there as much as a year, we hear. And then when it's approved, we then have to work with a consultant to determine the best timing to go to market and to obtain the best price and recommend that to the select board to adopt. So I would say checking with the Energy Committee and with us is probably the best thing. The other thing I would say is that we're launching a new subscription service called ClearGov in the next month or two. And one of the things, it's a transparency tool that we're going to use for finances and budget. They also offer put together these things called project pages where you can follow a project, whether it's what's going on with a fire station or Southwood Hospital, but it could also be something like this where we can build it and help people understand what's going on with it, how they can get involved, what the next steps are, answer their questions. So
something like next meeting in town that has us on the agenda is select board on this date. Great.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know exactly how that's going to work because we're just getting into it now, but trying to do a better job of, hey, I want to know what's going on with this municipal aggregation. They can go find out all about it.
Thank you. Yeah, I recognize that not everyone follows every agenda like all of us on here clearly do. Thank you.
Is this our discussion period?
Yes, go ahead. No motions have been made yet. Go ahead.
So I guess I'm of two minds. I mean, in some ways, this is a tax on the town in that, there are some, albeit small, there are some administrative things that have to do to make this go. We're not paying for consultants, and so part of me says, okay, if it's not that much of a help to some of the residents who participate, is the juice worth the squeeze? Counter to that, because I'm a Gemini and I like both sides, Blythe is saying that she's done it and it's not that big of a deal and she's in support of it. So I'm sharing a opinion that isn't well formed yet, and Isaac, I'm just sort of interested. I guess I'm interested in hearing, my colleagues' other smart questions. If anybody else has thoughts on how they feel, because I don't know how I feel.
Okay, so since you're asking, I feel the exact same way as the first part of your Gemini, which is this really worth the time and the effort that's going to be put into it? And the hassle of, honestly, hearing people complain that they were opted into something that they didn't want to be part of, which I don't personally find to be a big deal. Oh, you're going to save me money? Great. Oh, it doesn't save me anything? All right, I'm out of here. I don't personally find that a big deal, but I know that some people are very easily upset by being put into programs that they didn't necessarily want to be put into for whatever reason, or just the town or the government being involved in their business at all. With that said, I also don't want to bring my feelings on what could possibly be $6 a year or $12 a year into it. I feel like that's a lot of work for $6 a year, but it could be more. And I guess we have to look at it as the savings not to the town, but the savings to the town, not the actual town, but meaning the residents as a whole. So my thoughts are, though I don't really think it makes a ton of sense, and it's not my gut feeling that it should go that it should be something we even bother with. If Blythe, who has put all of the work into it, and Andy, who has also put all the work into it, feel this is the best thing, and they've looked at all of the studies in the other towns, and they want to move forward with it, who am I to get in their way? Because just because I think it's too much work, I'm not going to do the work. So that's the way I look at it, since you asked.
Can I add one more thing?
Mm-hmm.
Susan?
Yes.
So I have plenty of work to do. You know, it's okay with me if the town decides it's not the right fit, but I would, but I would point out just one other thing. I mean, there are people out there who are, you know, really feel it's important that they personally support, you know, greener options and help those businesses, you know, wherever they are, wind or solar or whatever, become more real. And they'd be willing to spend more money to do it. And if they're just buying it from Eversource, they don't get that choice except with state mandates. So, you know,
I definitely see that. I could probably get behind it more with the amount of work it is for the town employees to carry on with, if it was for green purposes versus saving $6. That's just where I have no issues with doing the extra work if it makes it more green. But again, that I'm just one person, doesn't matter. So
I agree with you, Susan. I think, you know, I did actually want to push on the potential to have savings though for businesses in town. I know obviously they're the ones that have struggled the most in the last, struggled more than many in the past year. I'll put it that way. Have you or Andy heard from businesses around this? Have they been asking for it? Have you talked to them during this process? Is there any appetite, or is it more just another, you know?
Honestly, haven't talked to them, but they are just as eligible to participate as a residence if they haven't already picked another supplier, and they're obligated to that. So, you know, I certainly would hope that it would help them as well. Is have the same opportunity as everybody else.
Why would they not be opted in if residents were? Why is that different?
It's the same answer. As Dave gave earlier. The whole system is built on opting out. But I mean, you get the information, and I know this because I think I shared this before. Built a house, and you know, it was a new account, and you know, I automatically got the information. And since I knew about it, I said to my husband, "Yep, we're doing this. I'm signing us up." But you know, I had that choice. I got it, and you know, and I followed through. There will be some hiccups. You know, there will be people who don't understand or didn't like to have it. Felt like it was chosen for them. They don't have to stay. They just can't be a revolving door in and out.
Kristen, I think it's probably a lot like, for example, with the schools, you get a letter saying we're showing this video in health class.
Yeah.
Let me know if you don't want your kid to watch it, because if they actually waited for everyone to get back to them, the response would be so low. Kind of like when
I guess I was saysaying that it sounded like Blythe was saying that businesses specifically wouldn't be able to pick it if they already had a contract with someone else. Is that
that's accurate? That's what I was going to say.
That's what I was trying to understand.
So if you've negotiated a separate supply agreement with another supplier, then you don't opt in automatically.
Okay.
And a lot of larger businesses that have the ability to negotiate because they have a larger electricity bill will in fact do that. The more sophisticated smaller businesses, the more sophisticated larger businesses will do stuff like that. So a small retail shop, you know, on Main Street or something like that is probably has not been looking around for a competitive supplier. So they would automatically opt in. But if one of the places down on Route 1A has negotiated a separate supply contract, then they're not obligated to give up that contract and become part of this. They are automatically out. And depending on what their deal is, depending on how we negotiate, they could opt in if they can get out of their other contract. But a lot of those have much tougher opt-out agreements.
Okay, thank you. I was just trying to understand how real that benefit would be for small businesses, and that's helpful context. Thank you.
Small businesses, a lot of them are not going to have a competitive supplier agreement. So,
Okay. Does anyone else have anything on article? Jackie?
I just think also just another thing to think about is just like offering a different option to people in a competitive market could lead to things that are positive. And I think when you only have one choice for anything and a market is essentially cornered by one energy supplier, I think it makes it hard. I can't have solar on my house, point blank, period. So like for me, it's like this is like an option and I can be opted in and then I can opt out. And then I know it's not a revolving door, but I think just something to think about is the fact that we can have some more competitive options for people where solar is not an option.
Great. All right. Anybody else?
I just on a personal level, I'm kind of it's a coin flip for me. I think similar to somebody's comments earlier. It's I probably wouldn't choose it necessarily, but if it's offered, I'll take it, kind of thing. So I just wanted to put that out there, kind of thing. That's a ringing endorsement of the answer being maybe. So,
okay. Well, I think that honestly, we should still go ahead and vote on this because the two people who were absent tonight would not have been privy to the discussion anyway. So it would likely just not necessarily lead to anything productive. And they were I spoke with both of them, neither of them were opposed to us voting on anything while in their absence. So unless someone has an issue with it, I'd like to go ahead and get a motion on Article 19.
I motion to approve Article 19.
Thank you, Kristen. Can I get a second? Thank you, Kiara. All right. I'm not going to say all in favor. I'm actually going to do a roll call on this one because it seems like we could be a little split. So I will start with Kiara Moore.
Yes.
Okay. Jonathan Hurwitz.
Yes.
Michael Huff.
Yes.
Kristen Baelish.
Yes.
Jackie Katz.
Yes.
David Lutz.
yes.
Susan Klein, yes. Is that everybody? God, tell me I didn't miss anybody. Did I miss anybody? No. Okay. All right. Well, I didn't need to do that. All in favor. We approved it unanimously. Article 19 passes.
Can I just make the comment that our discussion was really helpful to me?
Well, good, because that's what it's meant for. All right. Article 20, which is the animal regulations that we just went over. Is there any further commentary on the animal regulations? Does anyone have anything they'd like to say? The fees, the bylaws?
I add one more item just to point out to you all.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I just failed to mention earlier, and I'm real sorry about that, is that in the back of our bylaws, in the appendix and the fee schedule, that's where these fees used to be. And so if you look at the end of the bylaw, you're going to see lots of, crossing out and so on. What we're also doing with this is moving all those into Article 13 and taking them out of the back. Even when these were updated in 2011, there were conflicts between the two. So we're trying to clean that all up. That's why you see on the top half of page 13, that's why you see all of that strikeout area.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Thank you. I think we had a pretty good discussion on it. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything before we move? No. Okay. Can I get a motion on the approval of Article 20, the animal control regulations?
I move to approve Article 20.
Thank you, David.
Second.
Seconded by Jonathan. Thank you so much. All in favor of approving Article 20, which is the update to the town bylaws concerning animal regulations, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed to Article 20, please say nay. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, Article 21 starts the zoning / planning board / B1 discussions. since we're going to be voting on them next week, I'd like to reserve any commentary or discussions on them until next week, unless someone has a specific question for myself, Blythe, or Kevin. If so, we can just wait and discuss everything all at once. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the rest of it. Article 26, 27.
Can I make a comment on Article 26, just to bring people up to speed?
Yes, this is the road
Just-
acceptance articles, just in case anyone didn't know which one you were referring to.
Yes, it's a select board article. I just want to make sure everyone's aware that there are 3 streets and we're going to handle them in slightly different ways. Hampton Road and Liberty Lane are going to be accepted as public, all going to be accepted as public ways, but those will be fairly straightforward. Meeting House Road is planned as a eminent domain taking because we haven't been able to get the fee from the developer in order to handle this the typical way. We had to update this article recently because when there's a taking, we do have some costs and there might be a small payment we need to make to the developer owner for the land that we're taking. So you see the article now scripted to allow a sum of money to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer. We are working through that process right now. We've had to have a as-built plan done. We've had to engage an appraiser to give us the value. And we may have, I say, a very de minimis fee to pay to acquire it. We won't know those numbers until closer to town meeting, which is why it's scripted the way it is. So I just want to bring everyone up to speed because I'm not sure I had done that in the past.
Yeah, we talked about that
Sorry.
in the first meeting, but it looks like David has a question.
Yeah, because I sort of can't really remember this discussion. I apologize, but Meeting House Road is the one that runs between Main Street and Liberty Lane, correct?
That's Independence.
Okay, so Meeting House is the one that runs up towards Borelli.
Correct.
Okay.
Meeting
So
House
what are you, what's the eminent domain taking? What would you be taking? The easement on either
We're
side of
taking
the
the
road?
road. We're
The
taking
road itself.
Yep.
And how? Never mind.
Because the developer has not been willing to work with us to turn the fee interest over to us.
Can I ask a related question? Not necessarily for this article, but in those situations where developers do those sorts of take those actions or don't take those actions, and we incur a cost as a result, are there implications for the next development project that individual proposes? Are these fees and costs that we can recover the next time around, so to speak, or prevent future development?
I think it's been a learning experience for the town and the planning board in terms of finalizing these projects and making sure the town interests are appropriately handled. And we do have a number of streets that for one reason or another were never accepted by the town, and developments with developers who are long gone that, Rich McCarthy works on constantly. This one, you probably all know better than I do, the difficulties the town's had with it. But it's an issue for the residents who live there. We can't put up signage that we can enforce, even though the town at the end of the day actually finished this road for him. So the appraisal cost is about $7,500. The survey, I believe, is less than that, and there are a few dollars left to help pay for that. And we believe the cost will be minimal. So I just wanted everyone to be up to date on that.
And all his phases are built out?
Yes.
Okay.
A Meeting House, yes, he still owns some property at the top of the hill where the flagpole is.
Okay. Is there plans? Is that buildable?
My understanding is under the current zoning, he could do a 40B. He hasn't. And we have had a very long-standing issue with that party since we took over the sewer treatment plant, overpayment for fees for that, as well as their outstanding taxes on the property.
Okay. I don't, even though this is Rich McCarthy's domain and it is part of it is done by the planning board, this is separate from the other zoning issues that are going to be taken up. So if anyone would like to go ahead and make a motion, I think we can go ahead and vote on this one as well.
The planning board is having their meeting on next week, and part of that is to give the select board their report on these 3 streets, so the select board can actually vote on on acquiring them on April 20th. I think it's safe for you to vote, but I just want.
Yeah, I mean, we can't wait till April 20th, no matter what. So anything that's going to be taken up by the select board after the 14th won't apply to us. I mean, this is a standard road acceptance. Obviously, Meeting House makes it slightly different, but we have no option as a town except to take it by eminent domain. We can't just leave the residents at Meeting House and the condos to fend for themselves on a road. So I understand it's a little bit different, but it's still just a standard road acceptance in the sense of we do road acceptances all the time. So,
of course.
Unless someone has an issue with it, I'd like to go ahead and move forward. Does anyone have an issue? David, you have your hand up.
I did. Oh,
yeah. Okay, that's fine. I didn't know if it was.
Put it up for the last one.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure I'm comfortable voting on this, but that's okay.
What are you not comfortable voting on?
I'd be interested in seeing what the planning board report is. Susan, are we not meeting on the 21st?
We are meeting on the 21st, but we have already assigned warrant articles and voted at that point because the warrant goes to print, I believe, on the 23rd. So it's really a meeting just to finalize any business that we may have not been able to accomplish next week. But next week's meeting is really when we're voting on, we're trying to get through most things tonight, except for Council on Aging and the zoning stuff, which we're going to do next week. I mean, if you want to wait on this one, we can, but
that's my opinion. All
right. So I would like honestly, then I would love to suggest, and I hate to be that means whoever takes this article as writing the recommendations, it means that they only have a 2-day window. So I would have to ask that you take this article, and if that's okay with you.
I'm not entirely sure that's fair, but I've written it before. So,
well, I mean,
I've written it before. I mean, I frankly, Susan, my comment would be the planning board shouldn't have waited until the 20th, but that's a whole separate discussion.
You are correct, but it makes it very difficult when
I will write it.
Okay.
If we postpone it until the 21st, I will write it.
Then
it'll be mostly written before that night. So
it can be mostly written before we vote on it, as long as everyone knows that anything we put off until the 21st means you have 2 days, 48 hours to get them back to me. And to Erica, who's never done this before. So that's why I was hoping to give her a full week.
I appreciate that.
Okay. Article 27 is standard article utilizing Chapter 90 funds. The improvement of public roads. Anyone have any issues? No.
Move that we approve it.
I'd like to make I'd like to have a motion on Article 27. Thank you. That was David seconding and Mike making the motion. All in favor of approval in Article 27?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, please say nay. Thank you. Article 28 is standard article to authorize the select board to accept grants on behalf of the town. I don't think we have any right now, but should they come available, I have a motion on Article 28, please.
Move to approve Article 28.
Thank you, David.
Second.
Thank you, Kara. All in favor of Article 28, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, please say nay. Okay, Article 28 passes, Article 28 passes unanimously. All right, last one for this evening, Article 29. It just allows the select board to sell surplus property. Could I have a motion on Article 29, please?
I move to approve Article 29.
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
Thank you, David. All in favor of Article 29, approval of Article 29, please say aye.
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 Technically, I only got 2 ayes on that one.
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed to Article 29, please say nay. All right, Article 29 passes. Article 30 is the citizens petition this is the one that I was emailing you guys about. He pulled his petition as far as he is not supporting it, but he has refused to pull it legally, which is get the 12 signatures required to actually pull it from the warrant. So unfortunately, we have to still consider it. I do not want to discuss it tonight if there is going to be any discussion, but if no one wants to discuss it, since it's going to have to be IP'd no matter what we say, then we can go ahead and IP it.
I move to IP Article 30.
Second.
I invited both him and his lawyer to this meeting. I even let them know that if they didn't show up, we would have to have discussions and it might still appear in the warrant and it could still be approved. But obviously we're not going to do that because we don't really want to approve an article that is no longer supported and wasn't legally written in the first place. So
It's a mess.
thank you, David, for the motion to IP Article 30. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second. Kristen, all in favor of IPing Article 30, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please say nay. Jonathan Zippitz. All right, and Article 31 is next week's article by Peter Diamond, so we will discuss that when he is here. Anyone have anything else? Erica, did you get all of that? Do you have any questions before we go? You have everyone who made the motions and everyone who seconded them?
She's muted. Or Erica, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. There were two that I missed who seconded. Let me just go back and check which ones those were. One second. I missed Article 8 and Article 9. I know David moved to IP for both of those. I missed who seconded.
I believe Jonathan did one and Mike Huff did the other. Do either of you know which one you did? If not, someone will just have to refer to the recording. No?
I can go back and.
That'll get posted too, Erica. So
Yeah. Yeah. Erica, you can just refer to the YouTube link or the recording.
Yep.
If you want me to send you the recording, I can. If not, you can just check it out in the YouTube video.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. Are you all set with everything else?
I believe so.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else for this evening? Don't forget, next week is the Council on Aging and the Peter Diamond issue, as well as Rich McCarthy will be here and Sue Jacobson will be here. We have a full evening and I fully expect to go through the remainder of the warrant, barring anything that needs to wait until the 21st, which I hope is nothing but the budget.
And my problem.
And David's road acceptance issue. All right. If there is nothing else, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, David. All right, motion to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, and I will see you all next week. Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.